Mayim Bialik has spent her entire life being more than anyone could hold in a single frame, and the world never quite forgave her for it. Most people first encountered her as Blossom Rousseau, the bright, wonderfully odd teenager with the oversized hat and the kind of warmth that made you feel like she understood something about being young that nobody else on television was willing to say out loud. Then she disappeared, and when she came back as Amy Farrah Fowler on The Big Bang Theory, a fictional neuroscientist brought to life by a woman who had actually earned a doctorate in neuroscience from UCLA. That should have settled something. It didn't. If anything, it complicated the story people thought they already knew. Behind the degrees, the faith, the motherhood, the comeback, and the Jeopardy podium was a life that kept refusing to be summarized. A marriage that quietly became two households. A body that healed while the public watched. Personal choices turned into public debates by people who had never spent a single evening in her home. And a chapter at one of television's most iconic shows that ended under the long shadow of a man the audience never stopped mourning. Mayim Bialik turned 50, carrying the particular ache of someone who has spent decades being understood only in parts. This is the fuller story. She was born on December 12, 1975, in San Diego, California, and raised in Los Angeles by her parents, Barry Bialik and Beverly Tiekelman, inside a Jewish household where education, cultural memory, and identity were taken seriously. Her name itself carried meaning. Mayim comes from the Hebrew word for water. It was a gentle, quiet name for a girl growing up in the shadow of an industry built on fast judgment, manufactured glamour, and the habit of turning children's faces into products before those children had the chance to understand themselves. Her family's roots reached back to Eastern Europe, to generations who carried Jewish memory across borders and oceans. At home, those stories mattered. Outside, Los Angeles waited with its audition rooms and studio gates, where adults with cameras and clipboards made decisions about which faces could belong to America. Mayim did not come from a childhood that looked like a Hollywood fairy tale. The tension she grew up inside was quieter than that. The tension of existing between inherited memory and public visibility, between a home where she was treasured and an industry where she was evaluated. That tension didn't announce itself dramatically. It lived in the ordinary rhythms of school mornings, family conversations, and the strange early knowledge that a child can be deeply loved in one room and coolly assessed in the next. The camera found her early. In 1988, she appeared in Pumpkinhead and Beaches, two projects that placed her face in front of audiences who had no idea how long they would remember it. There is something quietly disorienting about a child entering a professional set for the first time. The bright lights, the marks on the floor, the adult voices telling you where to stand, and then the drive home, where homework and dinner, and the stories passed down through family memory, are all waiting. Even before she could articulate what fame meant, fame had already begun organizing her life around itself. When Blossom arrived on American television in 1991, something shifted. The show ran until 1995 and gave the country a teenage girl who felt genuinely different from the polished, aspirational images typically sold to young viewers. Mayim was still a teenager herself when the role began, and what she brought to Blossom Rousseau was something harder to manufacture than beauty or charisma. She played a girl who could be sharp without being slick, charming without being flawless, and emotionally honest without turning vulnerability into performance. For a generation of young women growing up in the early 90s who felt awkward, too smart, too much, or not enough, Blossom offered something rare. A reflection that didn't ask them to be ashamed of any of it. That resonance was real. But there was a cost inside it that rarely got discussed. Mayim's adolescence unfolded at a scale most teenagers never encounter. The public fell in love with a character before they had any particular reason to know the person behind her. The hat, the hair, the clothes, the voice, all of it became a kind of shorthand that millions of people filed away as something they understood. And when people believe they already understand you, they tend to stop listening closely. A child star can become a cherished memory for an entire generation. That sounds like a gift. It starts to feel like a trap the moment the child needs room to grow into someone more complicated than the version they first loved. By the mid-90s, Mayim faced the question that fame almost never helps anyone answer gently. How do you grow beyond a face the country has already decided it knows? Her answer was unusual and, in retrospect, remarkable. She didn't chase the image until it shrank around